Not on the recording. All right.
Yeah, it says we're recording. Go ahead.
I got it. Okay, good. Hi,
Thank
folks.
you, everybody.
Go ahead, Brad. Take it away.
Thank you so much for your patience. And I could see Susie's a little flustered. This is technology. And by the way, Blab is not up to date. Let's put it that way. It's beta. You can't even, if you don't know how to end a blab, you can't end a blab. So, that's what happened. So, and we couldn't get in. Susie was on. I saw a dot. I could see myself, but I couldn't see her. So let's get started. We're back again. Boomers trying to understand millennials, millennials trying to understand boomers. And I'm Brad Szollose. I'm your co-host. And it looks like we just lost Susie. Come back in, Susie, please. Stop touching anything. Once you're in, don't touch it. Tonight, we're going to really talk a little bit about the selfie generation and why maybe, just maybe, boomers don't get it. Because I know a lot of boomers out there, they don't understand why selfies are a big deal, or why they have to promote themselves on LinkedIn, or why they even have to be concerned about having a Google search. It's kind of annoying. And I want everybody to understand, when I first started doing this work, I remember I was at Right Management. And Right Management is in Manhattan, and it's a bunch of executives who lost their job, basically, in the publishing industry. And they want to move on, and they want to go to another publishing company. So while they're unemployed, they go to Right Management, they get some training, they keep their skills up to date until they get that job. Because, as you know, if you make over $100,000 a year, it takes a little bit longer to go from one job to the next. So me and a buddy of mine, Richard Carey, we decided to sit in and do this really cool workshop. And we thought, oh man, we're going to teach boomers how to, create a brand called You. And anybody who knows about that, look it up online. It's by Tom Peters. And back in 96, 97, he kind of predicted that we're all going to become brands. And what it boils down to is we have to become famous in our own world, in our own niche. So welcome back, Susie.
Thank you.
Don't touch anything. Stop moving. So anyway, getting back to Right Management. So I'm sitting there, and it's mostly boomers. And remember, this is probably about probably a good 6-7 years ago, and I'm sitting there, and we're talking about why you have to blog, and why you have to write articles, and why you have to have your resume up on LinkedIn. We were talking about all this stuff, and all the boomers in the room, like, they were bored, like they could care less. Why,
Right?
And the attitude boomers always had was, why we don't talk about ourselves, we don't promote ourselves. I'm just here because I'm awesome at what I do. I don't have to trumpet or play my own or toot my own horn, as they say. Well,
right.
Well, guess what? Everything's shifted. Now, if you don't have a LinkedIn profile, or you don't have any of these things, you're seen as you don't exist. I actually spoke to a buddy of mine. He's the same age as me, in his 50s. And I said to him, I go, do you have your resume up on LinkedIn? He goes, I don't need a job. Why would I be on LinkedIn? I said, you're an idiot. Because I've known him 40 years. I can say that to him. He goes, what do you mean? I go, LinkedIn is not a tool for your resume. It's a networking device. It's a platform, and everybody has a resume up there, including your boss. So, start doing it. And it's amazing how much boomers resist, have fought this, have resisted this. Like, why should I promote myself? Have you found that to be true, Susie Miller? I can't even see you, but I can hear you. Susie.
Okay, I can answer. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, just thumbs up. Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you.
It is a huge issue for me. We actually talked about this today because one of the things that my business coach has been on me a lot about recently is the fact that I don't self-promote. I don't have imposter syndrome. I have no problem with the awareness that I have a lot to offer. I bring a lot to the table. But when I was growing up, if you talked about yourself, you were showing off. You were too big for your britches.
You just cut out.
We waited until we got, I can't put in airplane mode, so a phone just came in. We waited until we earned our place, so you started at the bottom of the totem pole and you worked your way up so that you had you did your time, you earned your union card. I remember when my business coach said, why do you have all those letters after your name? Nobody cares. Just put your title there. Like, what do you do? And, for me, like, even my mom was like, what are you on? Like, Facebook and Pinterest and LinkedIn and Periscope and what the heck's a Blab? And didn't you, so for me, self-promotion has really been getting out of my comfort zone. And I remember when our son, Zach, who's now 25, started on, he kind of was the one who taught me a lot about social media. And I really had to take notes. I was like, why are you putting all this out there? Who cares what you did? And what I realized was nobody wants the packaged you. They want the real you. They want the you that kind of looks flustered when Blab doesn't work. And I'm on 7 screens at the moment. And so it's interesting to me how we have had as boomers to adjust to the world as it is versus saying to, millennials, hey, well, get on board with our way. And it's been very interesting to me to grow and learn. And a lot of my friends are like, so what do you do online? Who do you talk to online? Or do you have real friendships with people online? And what do you mean you're on a podcast? Is that a radio thing? And, I feel this is going to really age me. I feel very hip.
Hey, you're groovy, Daddy-O.
Oh, gosh.
Well, this is a really interesting paradox for a lot of you who are listening, especially if you're boomers. You probably don't really use social media that much, probably less than me and Susie. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Twitter. I'm on Pinterest. I'm on, Quora. I'm on things like this. And what this is if you don't know about this, I want you to go get a book called The Clue Train Manifesto. It's one word, Clue Train, and it's The Clue Train Manifesto, just like it sounds. And what they say is there's a train going by and there's clues on it. And if you don't get on, you're not going to get it.
You're going to miss it.
Right. So it's a great book, and it's written by 4 authors. And basically they say there's a giant conversation happening right now. It's called the internet. It's authentic. It's raw. It's mean. It's nasty. It's angry. It's happy. It's
say it
joyous.
Again. We lost you. It's called.
It's happy. It's sad. It's joyous. It's angry. It's everything. It's a giant conversation. And wherever there's conversation, there's fire. There's passion. There's people talking about what they want to talk about. And when marketers try to enter those conversations, it looks like arson. It's a fake conversation. So you have to be as authentic as possible. And that doesn't mean, the other day I got attacked on LinkedIn of all places. And I couldn't be mad at the guy because he said that my article was balderdash. Who uses balderdash in this day and age? It was hysterical, but you run the risk of that. But here's the thing. That guy just isolated himself.
Right, who uses
because
balderdash?
If you want to play in my network, I know billionaires and I know millionaires. And if you want to be in my network and you want to get financing for your company, that guy just cut himself off. So this is a big conversation. So he does some blogs and he says how authentic he is. Well, that doesn't mean you get the right to be a jerk or a jackass. But it does give you the right to be intense and sensitive and loving and brilliant and all these great things. So I'm sorry I jumped in there. Go ahead, Susie.
No, I think here's a couple of things I want to say. We have horrible Wi-Fi.
I have great Wi-Fi.
We're on my Wi-Fi. We're half on Ethernet. Great. So I just don't know if how much we're gonna get to cover. So thank you for everybody for being with us. Privet said I agree, but at the same time, when everyone's branding themselves, that's a new type of chaos. And I would agree. That's Claudia who said that. And it is deemed egotistical, but branding yourself is a must. So it's interesting. We used to brand companies. We used to be like, we had a title, a brand. And I know I've heard, when I came online, brand Susie Miller, you're the brand, you're the brand, you're the brand. What you offer, then what makes you unique is you. So it's very interesting, I know, for my generation to talk about kind of me. And what's funny is the boomers have been called the me generation because we were so much about advancing ourselves and making money and becoming successful. But it was according to a set of rules that were passed down to us by our parents in a very, what I would call modern mindset. One of the things we touched on early on, and I'm going to have Brad cover Topsy-Turvy World, but I want to make this one statement, and that is that this millennial generation is the first generation that was raised in a fully postmodern mindset, which means there was no absolute. It was a totally, no holes barred, anything's possible. Right and wrong were relative. It was a very relative world. And I think that's something we have to be aware of. I know we named this the selfie generation, and I think Ellen, actually, we have to credit Ellen with making boomers aware of selfies because she had that selfie that she took at the Oscars, which no matter how old you are, you watch the Oscars. But let's talk about why we ended up with this selfie generation. Let's talk about that for a little bit, Brad.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And I like what C.L. Previtt said. No one will care about you until they know you
Yes,
care.
absolutely.
And I totally agree with that. I think the reason Susie and I did this entire series is because we really care about the communication between our kids. When I go into corporations, they sit there like this. Yeah, tell us about those kids. You know, those kids are 37, okay, and you haven't put any time or effort into training them. How's that? So this is something we're passionate about, and that's why we did it. But this whole selfie thing came along, as I told you in the story. Uh, it's getting to promote yourself. That's not something boomers are comfortable with. We were told that you have to earn your place in a company, and you have to just show up and be good at what you do. And I'll give you a great story. This is an example from my life. I went to high school with some really great drummers, and I thought about becoming a professional drummer. I was in high school, and one of my buddies in the drum line, he was as good as Neil Peart, and I'm a professional drummer. I can tell you that is a true ism, because he was just so talented, but he didn't promote himself. You know, he just figured, I'm going to be good. And this guy opened for bands all over the world, and the owners of the bands would run up to him afterwards and say, you know, if my drummer dies, we want you to be our drummer. But he never broke through because he didn't know how to promote himself. This is what it's about in this day and age. Boomers, right, Gen X, and Millennials are all competing for the same job. And as soon as they walk out the door, guess what? The person is Googling your name. And you're sitting there going, I'm just going to get chosen because I'm damn good at what I do. Well, guess what? I've been in Forbes magazine. I've been in Inc. magazine. I've been in New York magazine Details. I've been in magazines all over the world. Who do you think they're going to choose between you and me? They're going to choose me because my profile online is better. Now, I'm not great. I'm not famous, but I've worked at it. And so is Susie. So fame, believe it or not, has become
relative.
A platform. Yeah, it's become so relative. And I think it's all silly and stupid, just like the rest of you might think it is. But guess what? We've gone from being private to being transparent. The world wants to know who you are, why you do what you do. You know, if you shake your booty at home or whatever. And in this cacophony of all this, you have to decide what you stand for, so that you stand out.
Well, let's. I'm going to interrupt you for a second here, because I think we have to make a delineation between transparent and authentic. True. I think we want to be authentic. We want to be our real selves. But I think sometimes transparency, that let it all hang out, is a little much. You know, is a little. It can get a little crass. It's almost like you can be as offensive as you want if you want to go viral, but it's not necessarily adding value to anybody or anything. So I want to draw a line and go, you know what? I think authenticity matters, because one of the big things that I would think was a huge part of disillusionment for our millennials was this idea of the facade. You know, here's the public persona. Yes. Here's who the boomers said they were. And I know this was huge for our kids. You know, we were told what happened behind closed doors stayed behind closed doors. You know, selfies was, are you kidding me? You don't selfie anything. And when I remember having an argument on the way to the church with my husband and the kids, and then, okay, smile, we're getting out of the car now, and I'll never forget the day that my daughter, Kate, and we were having a discussion, we called them. She had been disrespectful. We were arguing about homework, and we had to go to the mall. I had promised to take her to the mall to get new cleats for soccer, and I was short-tempered with her in the car, and I was talking to her, Kate, when you act this way, it really frustrates me, and I don't understand why you can't, get your room done and get your homework done on time. And I'm driving to the school, and I'm really short with her. We pull up to her friend Shannon's house, opens the door. Hi, Shannon, how are you? And Kate looked at me like, Mom. And later we got home, and she said, you're so fake. And I had this huge, like, aha. To me, I was supposed to behave a certain way with the public. And my daughter got the stern scolding that in my mind she deserved. But we really talked about that. And I feel like millennials kind of let it all hang out, because that feels fake to them versus what we would call situation appropriate. Now, I think we're both right, and I think we're both wrong. I think we're both right in that there is.
Say it again, Susie. I lost you for a second.
Situationally appropriate. I have to know. Okay. I said, I think we are both right and we are both wrong. I think there is a time that we have to be aware of what it means to be situationally appropriate. I think, when we are going to meet a dignitary, we dress certain
Right.
ways, we behave a certain way. I think there's also a time when that kind of put on facade that our kids said that's fake, they're right, it's put on.
Yeah.
And we need to be aware of that. So I think what the millennials have called us to is a sense of being more authentic and saying, you know what, I am having a bad day and I do snap at my kids and I do have bad hair days. And can I turn the camera on those days?
Right.
But that's very different than that transparency of letting it all hang out. What do you guys think?
Yeah, right in. Let us know. And we're going to be taking Q&A probably in about 10 minutes. But,
Yeah.
you know, I think you hit the nail on the head. And any millennials or Gen Xers who are listening or watching, I know you've seen people on television like the CEO, and they come out and they're perfect. You know, they have to be perfect. This idea of like, you know, look at Charlie Sheen, how he just exposes his whole life, or Nicki Minaj, or all these people, or Beyonce. You know, that they are controlling that message, but it looks like they're being authentic.
There's no such thing as reality TV. It's all
if there's
scripted.
A camera involved, it's not real. I always say that to people. So we all, and this is the difference. We now have the same tools that Edward Bernays had, you know, to promote yourself. We have video now. You can broadcast. You can write articles. Mm-hmm. You can do all these things, and this gives you a platform now to be able to get out there and be known. And I think millennials, and you know, and even the next generation, and even a little bit of Gen X. This is the first time we've been able to use these tools, and maybe they don't have the life experience, I think, to be able to go, ooh, maybe I shouldn't have had that drunk, naked picture of me in a thong out online. And you will not find any shots of me in a thong. Just want to let you know that. But you know, those are the kind of things that when you're young, I've done
drunk and naked
stuff when
maybe,
I was in
but
college.
Not in a thong if you're looking for Brad.
Well, let me put it to you this way: I went to college for art and design. Do you think I went to school with some freaks? And we shared dormitories with pharmaceutical students. That was my first lesson in a market looking for a product. Okay. So, you know, this is some of our chatting, and I see some people are coming in.
Yes.
And we could be right, we could be wrong. So but, you know, my business books have gotten people. Yeah, go ahead.
Says, what would your advice be for a Gen Xer trying to break into entrepreneurship with tech? Have a major presence yet? What are essential tools you integrated? And I'm going to let Brad handle that in a minute. So, Brad, think about your answer. Chris is laughing at us because it's so true. And you know, Gen X is forgotten a bit between boomers and millennials because they really were the slide between. People were trying to figure out what to do. We kind of lumped them in a bit with millennials. So we will talk a little bit about that, probably more so in the book.
Right.
Brad, before you answer that, I do want to say this with response to the fact that our kids have grown up with, and especially the digital natives, my nieces, there is an upside to the selfie generation. There is an upside to this massive presence in front of the world in the camera. And that is a profound sense of being comfortable in their own skin. I look at the pictures that my nieces have taken, that capturing at any angle. And I think, gosh, I wonder how much more comfortable in my own skin, how much sooner I would have been there. So there are some benefits to it. But go ahead. Why don't you answer that, Brad?
CL Prevet, you're a Gen Xer. One of the things I do is I coach a lot of entrepreneurs, especially when you may have some of that problem with a social presence or speaking up or stepping out. Believe it or not, I was deathly shy as a kid, so I understand it. But being an entrepreneur is a completely different set of skills than having a job. And a lot of times I've seen people in the job market, you know, they've gotten into management and they think they know it all, and then they start a business and they fail because they're trying to apply the same principles that they learned on the job. And an entrepreneur is very different. You've got to do everything. You've got to learn. So what skills, are you really good at? Because you have to create a great product or a great service. And what skills are you missing? And that's where you need somebody to coach you to bring out those skills that maybe you're shy. I have somebody in my one coaching program, he's deathly shy, tall, good looking, and I got to work with him on that. But it's incredible. He is going into a field where he's going to be on TV. He's going to be in the limelight. So we're going to be training. So you know, actually email me later on. I'd love to have a dialogue with you. We'd have a lot of fun. You can email me at brad@liquidleadership.com because this is fascinating to me, you know, because when we were kids, and Susie, you can probably talk about this, you didn't go to college to become an entrepreneur. You started a business. That's how it worked. And nowadays, everybody is giving advice and everybody's training and doing all these things. So it's been a crazy world. But getting back a little bit to the selfie generation, can you hear me? Hello? Anyways, yeah, I would agree, Claudia. 10 to 15 years ago, we were not surrounded by constant selfie mentality because we didn't have selfies. But something came along called the yuppie. And you might not know that, but yuppie, I don't know if you remember this, Susie. I think we just lost Susie. But when I was a kid, my father, when he bought a car, he would brag to his friends, I got that car for $4,500. They'd be like, how did you talk him down so low? You know, because back in the day were $5,500. So my dad talked this guy down to $47,500, you know, and everybody's like, man. So my dad would brag about how much money he saved. Well, along came yuppies, and yuppies said, I bought this $60,000 car. And my father would be like, you're an idiot. And they're like, people started bragging how much money they were wasting. They were making so much money. Look at me, you know. So the ego took over because suddenly salaries were going through the roof. Nobody talked about inflation destroying the dollar, but basically that's what happened. And then we got the mixed mansions, and we got everybody showing off. And those are the generations that raised millennials to be exactly the way they are.
And let me hop in here real quick, because Gen Xs are really the forgotten stepchildren or the middle child. And Brad and I are actually right on the cusp. We call ourselves boomers because we are technically boomers in terms of the years that the powers that be say. Yeah. But we are really much more in the Gen Xer world, which are the angry, the pushback, the grunge, the kind of the lost generation that kind of had that the pull away from our parents, but not quite the excitement and the freedom of the millennials. So, you know, Gen X, they were never the media darlings. They were never kind of the boomers were the post-war generation, and the millennials were the trophy generation. And so Gen Xers kind of got smashed in there. And so they were kind of, you know, on the front of millennials and on the back of boomers. You know, boomers didn't listen to grunge, and millennials don't care about Courtney Love. So the Gen Xers had that little blip, but really I will include us in there, didn't really make a splash.
My stepbrother was 12 years older than me, and he was raised on being drafted into Vietnam. He was afraid of that. And I was raised on the ABC after school special. So, but we're boomers. I have to disagree with Claudio on money became the number one value. That's not true. What happened is every generation wants to give their kids the better life. And what happened is now all of a sudden parenting, they got into the psychological part of parenting back in the 60s. And if you can watch some of our previous blabs on this. So the mindset about parenting changed. My father never bought me anything brand new, and he smacked me across the head many times. But then the next generation came along and he said, you know what? My parents died and I wasn't friends with them. I'm going to be friends with my kids. I'm going to give them everything I want. And then our government said, hey, you got to have the McMansion. And guess what else happened? There was something that Susie and I grew up with. Our mothers probably didn't work. Your mom didn't work, did she? We didn't have to. So now we have a 2-income household, and it's still not enough for our government, by the way. They're collecting double taxes from the time that we were growing up. So now they have double taxes. Inflation makes people go buy the big house. It's a $400,000 house, isn't it? No. We could get the same house for $56,000 in 1977. It's the value of the dollar went down. So people started hustling more, working harder, and thinking, oh, my God, I got to go on this rat race. And my wife's from another country. When she got here, she says, I've never seen human beings work so hard and get so little as Americans. We don't know what's going on in the rest of the world. So we're working harder and we're doing all these things. And we're thinking this is the way it's supposed to be because we look around and we go, I got a nice house. I put my kids in college because they all told me to send my kid to college. And all this stuff's going on.
And that's the key. Exactly. They all told me. And that's what we bought into. They told me, my parents said this was the way, get a bigger house, get a better car, get yourself a college education. Don't get stuck in blue collar. Don't do what my parents did. Don't repeat the Depression era. Don't all of those things. And our millennial kids are like, screw it. I want experiences. I don't want stuff. My husband and I were sitting last night. It was we had a board meeting for this nonprofit that we're both on a board for. We came home and we're kind of done and we wanted to veg, but we didn't want to get involved in a story drama. So we popped on HGTV and the Tiny House Nation was on. And we're watching. I know. And my husband nudges me because he knows I like my stuff. And he's like, your shoes wouldn't fit in that closet. But, my daughter is a minimalist. And I remember when she first got married and she started really paring down. She had a couple pairs of shoes, a couple pairs of slacks. And I remember being almost shamed, thinking I should try this because what a waste. And I've been very involved in this cause of justice, and fair trade became a big deal. And where are our goods made? And so all of a sudden our paradigm has shifted because our kids, and this is totally my theory. I haven't researched it yet apart from my straw poll with my local, millennial, kids, is they had everything. They never worked for their allowance. They didn't need, I remember saving up for the newest, book I wanted, or the shoes, or the coolest pair of Levi's,
drum
or the
set,
new
drum set
record album,
and records. Set. Yeah, that was for
right. And saving money and doing without. And I'm not saying millennials are spoiled. I'm saying we wanted them to have a comfortable life. So when they got to the age of actualization, they were actualized apart from their personal desires. They were like, well, I had great stuff and Target's down the street. So if I need new stuff, I'll buy it. And the global market made it very affordable. So suddenly experiences and transformative engagement made a difference, and changing the world. And literally that top of Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization, became more important. I think that has changed our world.
But believe it or not, people don't realize this, but without yuppies, we wouldn't have globalism because they demanded BMWs. Nobody wanted to buy a foreign car when I was a kid. You had to buy American made. If you didn't buy American made, you were a dick. And the people would come up and they would tell you
Nazi.
off. So you all of a sudden Japanese cars came into the into the forefront in the 70s, and everybody's like, why are you buying that? Because I get 150 miles to the gallon. That kind of.
And they last forever.
It was happening right in front of Americans. So all of a sudden, yuppies came along and they demanded international coffees. They wanted rugs from Bangladesh. They wanted cars from all over the world because they could afford it. And all of a sudden, we're looking outside of the U.S. for everything. And without the yuppie movement, we can look down on them. You can make fun of them. You can say, all they cared about was money. What a bunch of idiots. They were upwardly mobile because we had built everything up from World War II. This is psychologically the way it must happen in this order. You can't reverse it or do anything else. And if you look at the rest of the world, they are skipping the Industrial Revolution in many ways and jumping right into the Tech Revolution. And emotionally, they can't handle it. Thomas Friedman talked about that.
And their infrastructure is not there because they haven't done the industrialization of a nation. And so we'll see what happens. I want to go back to, if we have any millennials on the line, can you buzz in? Because we'd love to have you part of our conversation. I know. Can you dial in? Hello, this is, okay. I will say it. Brad and I were joking this morning about how we were both in school. We probably would have dated each other. And my husband did say, you'd have told him to stand in line. But I remember in the dating days, standing in my hallway in the touch tone, phone, and we had that long cord, and there were 4 girls in my house with one.
Oh God, yeah, I remember that.
We were all in high school at the same time within a couple years, and we traded. We pull the cord and hide in the bathroom while we were talking to the boy that we were dating. Now, we have cell phones, and we don't even. Now the coaching I do with couples and teens, and I was working with a CEO and his wife the other day, and we literally were on Skype, and his phone rang, and she looked at him and she said, we had an agreement that your phone would be in the other room when we were on these coaching calls and on our walks and on our dates. Remember, who knew phones would be the demise of a marriage? So do you even want to dial in?
Yeah, please
here?
dial in.
Do you have any selfie generation
one of the
folks?
things that I just wanted to jump in here and say is that we needed the hippie as much as we needed the yuppie, because we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today if we hadn't done that. We'd still be much more xenophobic than we actually are, which means we don't care about the rest of the world, and we're finding this generation has been raised to care about the rest of the world. As a matter of fact, they give a damn about Africa and what's going on in Guam and things more so than what's happening in their own backyard, because they've been taught to care. And it's because we raised them that way. They watched us spend the money and try to make them happy by driving them and buying them and doing all this crap out of guilt, out of who knows. I mean, psychologically, we're going to break this down in the book, but I think it's going to be a fantastic world that comes along. I look forward to it.
Right. Yeah, we've got Dan jumping in here, and Claudia says yes, but we know we both need most groups. Yes.
Hello, Susie. Hey, good to see you too.
Good to see you again.
Good, Dan.
How's Spanish going? Studying going? Okay, wait. How old are you?
I'm 21.
For my curiosity. Yeah, I was gonna say you look like my son. That same kind of cool, whatever. Yeah. So, what do you think of all this selfie generation stuff we're saying? I'd love to hear your take on it.
Honestly, I think you guys hit the nail on the head. The reason why I popped in here was I just wanted to hear your take on it, because I know when I talk to kids my age, they're always just like me, and I just like getting the different insight, the different feel on our generation, because like I said, I'm only talking to the majority of people that I talk to since I'm in college. The majority of people that I talk to are the millennials, and I just don't get that same I just don't get the same insight that in
perspective. Yeah. Do you mind if I ask you a few questions because you're with us? So here's what I want to know. I would love to know what you and your peers, and it might be really fun. If you want to email Brad or me, we'll pop our emails in the chat box. We'd love to set up literally a group chat, because I have a 25, 28, and 30-year-old, but I'd love to know what millennials and college kids today are thinking about us in terms of, I hear all of these things from the families I work with. You don't get it. You're trying to be cool like us. Get off our social media. Every time you come take over ours, we have to invent a new one. We like that you're friends, but could you not be our friends and try to be our parents? So I'd love to know and again, if you don't want us to publish it, we won't. That's fine. We won't use your name, but I'd love some feedback. Just kind of like what's the locker room?
It's good, CL.
Yeah. What'd you say, Brad?
No, CL is jumping in. CL Previtt. He talks with millennials every day, and he gets their feedback.
Yeah, good. Jump in, CL.
Yeah, that's good.
What do you think? Dan?
Well, with the thing you touched with, like your generation, like getting into our social media and whatnot, our social media.
Yeah. You got a problem with that?
Actually, yes, they do.
So angry.
I think back when I was in high school, it was definitely a bigger deal. Now that I'm in college, it's kind of fun. I mean, at the same time, it's a little annoying because, I don't know. It's 50-50. I mean, I always appreciate when my mom sends me like articles about like how to save money and just like jobs that are popping up everywhere. But sometimes she might send me something that I'm like, this doesn't have any significance in my life. And
so they post on your page, or you get?
I don't think she's ever posted on my wall, but thankfully she's just messaged me on this Facebook.
Yeah.
So do you have rules? Like, I know when my son was in college and Facebook was relatively new, and now this is going to date me. When my kids started school, so my oldest is 30, Facebook was a college kids thing.
Yeah.
And it was how they connected with each other at college and how they talked about teachers. So it wasn't even a big deal outside of college yet. It was just for college kids. Then it became a bigger deal when my son was in college. He was about 5 years behind. And I remember him saying, Mom, if I accept your friend request, you cannot post on my wall. And I was like, all right, I won't post on your wall. But I remember one day reading on his wall, and he had posted some stupid, foul, just stupid, dumb ass thing. And I messaged him. I probably called him and said, take the F word off your page. Because that's going to follow you forever. And he was like, Mom, you're so sensitive. You're being so old fashioned. And, years later, he was like, all right. So, there's some rules and stuff. I'm really curious. Like, does your mom talk to you about that kind of stuff? And do you guys laugh at us and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, she does. I mean, like now we're using things like CL brought up very good point that Facebook is for Gen Xers. Like now we're using things like Snapchat, and those are really more tailored to. I think it's more tailored to millennials in that like you have to add everyone. Like we can, Instagram
Snapchat.
too. We can send these messages to people that we like want to send, the exact people that we want to send. Whereas like Facebook and Twitter, it's open to like all our friends.
Yeah. What do you think of Periscope?
I mean, I've tried it. I'm not a big fan. You said your students went to James Madison, right? Is that you that said your kids went to James Madison?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm at James Madison right now, and I know of everyone that goes to James Madison, I've never heard anyone talk about Periscope. So
Periscope is used more in business. I see more business people using it, older people, because it has a lot of limitations. It's just like you can broadcast your own show, but it's just one camera. You can't have guests on yet. I think they're going to start doing it.
I like Blab much better, which is weird because Periscope and Blab are both owned by Twitter, so I don't know why they need both. I know my kids love Snapchat, Dan, because they could chat and get rid of it, and so there was no record. And so they could be like, my mom's ticking me off, I can't stand her, and it was gone. They could be sitting next to me, and I'd never know it, So what are some things that y'all wish your boomer parents knew if you could tell them, and there was like that, that secret mirror screen, and they couldn't see it was you?
I mean, thankfully, my mom's a teacher in high school, so she understands.
All right, let's put it easier. What do your friends say they wish their parents knew? Not your cool mom, but your friends.
That's a good question. We don't really talk about our parents that much.
Oh, cool. All right.
Let's see. Okay.
So here's something. Let me ask you this. Claudia said, millennials, boomers think that, so she's saying they try to understand millennials. Many of the boomers think millennials have a selfie mentality. There's too much sharing and no privacy. Or her favorite is, why are millennials sharing so much? And what is the value in that? So when you hear those kind of things, what's your answer to that? Like, what's the purpose of all that sharing and connecting?
Well, I mean, to mention the second point, I think millennials are also cognizant of our selfie mentality. And like people understand that when they have this like selfie stick thing, like that's become so frowned upon now. Whenever you see a selfie stick, that's uncool.
All the tourists use it though.
My kids make fun of me because I do my videos with them now because I'm like, oh my gosh, my mom has a selfie stick.
I think to answer the fourth point, I think it's honestly more about storytelling and like being as personal as you can.
Can I jump in here, Dan, real quick? I think I have a different perspective. You guys grew up with tools that were always there. And so for a boomer, it's like, I'm going on this site and I'm using this. And why are they using all these things? To you, this is how you communicate. There's nothing to it. It's like a telephone to you. No boomer would ever sit here and say, why are you using the phone? Because he lives 30 miles down the road, Dad. Nobody would say that. So, I try to tell business people all the time. They go, they're texting and there's typos in the texting and all this. I go, because they're talking. It's not writing. These are your tools. These are your platforms to communicate. And if you're tired of the reality that's happening around you, I'm in Barnes & Noble right now. Do you think people are looking at me like, what does that guy think he is? I don't care. I have another reality I'm involved in right now. And these tools allow you. It's just a platform. That's it.
I think that's a great point, Brad, because, my kids, I communicate with them much more through text. Our son's in Israel, so we do FaceTime. But my mom, who is a young grandma for a 30-year-old, so she's 73, I'm 53, and our daughter's 30. She talks to my daughter, Kate, through text. And she finally wrapped her mind around the fact that if she could accept that, she'd have so much more of a relationship with my kids than if she expected them to call her. Because they don't talk to their closest friends on the phone. They text their closest friends, and that's how they communicate. I love that point.
I was at CVS one day, and I wanted to pick up some photos. And this older woman was behind the counter, clearly a grandmother, and she's got her cell phone up. She goes, one moment. And I'm looking at her when she's done. I look at her, I go, wait a minute, this isn't supposed to happen. You're the stereotype who's not supposed to be able to do any of this. She goes, you don't get it. If I don't do this, I can't talk to my grandkids. And they're 30. Right. They don't talk to me on the phone. Right. They don't even know how to pick up the phone. This is how I communicate with them, texting, because it's a communication medium. Boomers see it as, oh, you're taking out your phone and you're typing. No, they're talking.
Right. Right. Here's a question for you, Dan. Have you had any of your older adult, teachers or parents, whatever, get frustrated that you're trying to talk to them with your phone there?
Yes, all the time. Actually.
That was one of the hardest for me to get used to when our son-in-law would be like, yeah, how do you handle that? Like, what are your thoughts about that? Very stressed.
Sure. Well, first off, I just want to point out that I can't see you. It just says your audio's only.
Okay, that's okay. Keep talking.
And I know it was just a few weeks ago, my mom said that she found this article that was texting etiquette and when it's appropriate to have your phone. And it's not exactly what she was saying because it was on my phone. But she was saying something like, if there's 4 people and if 3 of them have their phones, then if 3 of them have their phones out, then it's okay to have your phone out. But if there's a group of 4 people without and none of them have their phones out, then it's really
I'm laughing because it's sort of like if you visited another country and everybody wore a red hat and you're sitting there going, I guess I should buy a red hat. Your mom is interpreting the data as an outsider watching you and telling, if one person has their phone out, you can't have the other. I'll put it to you simply. If you're standing in line in the bank, watch closely because people do stand on line still in the bank. Just so you know. So if you see about 15 people, you're going to notice something happens. People get bored, start shifting from one foot to the other. They're waiting. All of a sudden, one guy pulls out the cell phone. Now, watch closely. It takes 30 seconds. The next guy pulls out his cell phone. And down the line, it's just like yawning. Everybody starts pulling out their cell phone. That's how it goes.
Well, and it's so funny.
In the 21st century.
My mom will say to me this all the time. She's like, can't you sit still and do nothing? And to me, I can't. I have a party in my mind almost all the time. But to me, if I'm standing still waiting for somebody else to catch up to me or I'm in line, it is a perfect time to get something done on my phone. So to me, it's about using time. Oh, Robin, try again. It's about using the time wisely. Now, if I pick up the phone when my husband and I are trying to watch a movie, all bets are off. Hi, Robin. Okay, so Robin, tell us. Can't hear you yet. Turn your mic up.
Can't hear. Turn your mic on or up.
Make sure you're not muted on Blab.
Make sure you're not muted, and also double check if you're on a Mac. Just double check your microphone. Come back in.
Nice Talking Heads reference.
Don't go ahead.
Come back. Try again. Sometimes, Robin, you have to make sure that you let Blab have your mic. So the thing to me is, and I'm not kidding. When I started doing online stuff and selfie sticks and all that kind of stuff, my kids made fun of me. But there is this idea. I think phone etiquette.
And well deserved.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi. I'm giving Brad a hard time. I'm giving Brad a hard time.
I totally understand. Sorry, I've been offline on this computer for a couple of days. So
that's okay.
I am about to be a grandmother for the first time.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
But I love what you guys are saying. And the thing is that I communicate with my almost 21-year-old son via text more than anything else. That's his chosen form of communication. It was when he lived at home. It's now that he lives outside of home. I communicate with his girlfriend now that way. And I'm sure once my twin grandbabies are born, that after a few years, it's going to take a little while, but that will be their chosen form of communication as well. And I think you have to kind of go with the flow and stuff, and don't be alarmed that you're older. I'm 45 years old, and I have no problem communicating via text. It's my favorite way of communication, actually. And
I'm getting arthritis in my thumbs, though.
Yeah. So I would much.
Don't laugh, Dan.
Susie, I totally understand.
I use one finger.
I use Verizon messages, and so that way I can do it on my computer as well as my phone, and I can use my keyboard, and it's much easier. But my mom, even who is 68 years old, she is totally into texting as well.
So is mine. I'm really proud of her. She's very savvy.
So it's totally, everybody can learn how to do this. My dad has not quite grasped the concept, but he is learning. He has an iPad now, and he can email me. He can send me things and stuff, and he's learning. And I teach him something new every time I'm around him. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's totally... It's not, there's nothing blocking people from any generation from doing this. It's just a matter
right. Well, here's what's funny, Robin. My husband, I'm headed on a cruise with my best girlfriend next week, and I'm building this whole online platform. And my husband is a curmudgeon, and he's a great guy. But when it comes to social media, he's being a total, like, he texts with our kids, but I'm like, okay,
he's a Luddite.
He will, exactly. He's driving me crazy. And he said, I probably need some like relationship coaching or something. So he said, which is my field. So I'm like, if I leave you some posts, can you put them up? He's like, no, people can do without hearing from you for like 4 days. Like, you don't understand. And he just has no understanding of why. So to be so loving and kind, I was like, fine. If any of your friends find me on social media, I'm going to tell them, no, they can't talk to you. Like,
I agree with you totally.
Funny.
I would rather teach someone how to do it themselves than to do it for them. Mm-hmm. That is exactly how, because it's not really that hard. It's just a matter of teaching them. And the older the person is, sometimes it just takes a little bit longer to explain to them how to do that. They have to practice.
Yeah. Well, boomers.
Dan, have you taught a lot of your family members, older family members on social media?
Yes, and it's the things that I'm teaching them are very simple. From my point of view, they're very simple to understand, but I guess they just can't grasp it for a strange reason.
Well, while we were taught to resist technology, boomers were taught in the public school system. So we were trained that we study hard, we take a test, we pass that test, and then we move forward and we hoard that knowledge. Okay, so now in the information age, you got to let go of your knowledge and move to the next level, move to the next level, move to the next level. Our brains aren't programmed that way. Now, I'm a tech guy and I love Star Trek, so that's a driving force. I want my own starship. That's really what's going on here. But the reality is that boomers, we were taught to resist technology. Now, there's a handful of cool boomers who, they started picking up these tools. But if you talk to your parents or you talk to any boomer, guess what? A lot of them will remember the day they started using a computer at 30 years of age or 20 years of age. And they were like, oh, what do I do? And that was back when we had 28K modems. And
I remember when the first computer came into our house.
Yeah.
And now we were watching some Netflix the other day, and there was an older movie, and it wasn't that old because it was on Netflix, and you saw the computer with the whole big back and the big, remember the tube and the television and all that? So I'm really aware of the time. Someone mentioned Star Trek. Sweet. Absolutely. Can we add Doctor Who to that list? Yes, we can.
Yes, we can. Hey,
Brad,
bow ties are cool.
Bow ties are cool. It's 9:35. I love the interaction we're getting. We are down to one more before the end of the series. That doesn't mean we won't be back. Brad, do you want to wrap us up and kind of give them a place to post questions before we finish up our next one? When's our next one? Tomorrow?
Yeah, tomorrow at 11:15.
Yeah.
We actually started this one. Susie brought up Alvin Toffler, who wrote the book Future Shock with his wife Heidi, and they did all this research about what was going to happen, and it had a huge impact on me as a kid because I saw the movie when I was 10. Because they didn't baby us like they do with the next generation. We were like, here it is, kids, the raw truth. So what happened is we started to realize that a new generation would be coming along that didn't want to have anything to do with the previous generation. And that generation would be a disposable generation. They would not understand why they need to save or why they need to do any of these things. They would just be moving at a faster pace. And the older generation would be standing there watching them with disdain, kind of like you don't get it. And that's coming upon us right now. And we're moving from, in his second book, The Third Wave, Alvin Toffler said that we had the agrarian society was the first wave where we planted crops and everything else. The second wave was the industrial age, which was bloody and war and everything else. And now we're in the third wave where a new, gentler, more humane way of life is coming along, and a new generation will demand that. And I believe millennials are that generation. And we raised you guys, by the way, on a subconscious level. We knew things were bad, and we asked you to do better. Many of your parents looked at you and said, find your passion. Don't do what I did. Even though we're still in the education system and we're doing things, millennials are at least trying to find things that they're passionate about instead of just getting a job. So I think this series is very important because I see a lot of parents who don't understand their millennial kids, and I see a lot of millennials who don't understand their parents, and we don't know why. Everybody's focusing on you guys, am I right? And that's what we're trying to answer here. And I hope you enjoy this. We're having a lot of fun. Me and Susie are getting to know each other a little bit better and having a lot of fun breaking this down. So tomorrow we're going to wrap things up. We have millennials as parents.
Yeah.
And hopefully
just
scary, isn't it?
Really
scary.
And you might be able to.
Yes.
It really is. And honestly, at one level, and Brad, you can answer this. I think Dan's almost on that digital native cloud kid because he's 21. Yeah. And he's
right at the cusp. He's still a millennial, but he's been raised with tools that you don't even have to save things on a hard drive. It's in the cloud. Whereas my generation, we had giant speakers and we had a record collection, and we had an 8-track collection, and we had a book collection, and it took up space. And you guys have a little device. Everything's on that device.
And even my kids, they did not, like my nieces who are 13 and 17, they have phones and clouds, and my kids didn't have that. Like they didn't have phones until they got a little older, to college, that kind of stuff, high school. So it's really interesting. Dan, thanks for being here.
Thank you,
Robin, thanks. I hope you can join us tomorrow. Email us if you have questions or thoughts. I'm going to pop our 2 emails in here. I'm office@Susie Miller. And what is yours? Pop yours in here, Brad. So
I did. I'll do it again. It's Brad@liquidleadership.com.
Okay. If you have questions or thoughts you want us to cover, we would love to make sure we include that. We're having so much fun. We'll probably show up again, maybe if not before Christmas, after the New Year. So stay tuned and yay, Jay, and go Dukes.
Go Dukes.
That's for you.
That's funny.
Take care, guys.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Don't forget this recording and then click on the X. Susie, that'll end all. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Rob.
That was great.
Boom, boom, boom. Got to get that boom, boom.